Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a kind and beautiful princess named Snow White. She had skin as white as snow, lips as red as roses, and hair as black as coal. But she lived with her stepmother, the queen, who was beautiful on the outside but jealous and cruel on the inside. The queen had a magical mirror. Every day she would ask it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always answer, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." This made the queen smile, for she loved being the most admired in the kingdom. But as Snow White grew older, her beauty began to shine even brighter. One day, when the queen asked her mirror, it replied, "Snow White is the fairest of them all." The queen was furious. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her. So she made a wicked plan. She called the royal huntsman and ordered, "Take Snow White deep into the forest and never bring her back." The huntsman led Snow White far into the woods, but when he looked into her kind, gentle eyes, he could not do her harm. "Run away," he whispered, "and never return to the castle. The queen must never find you." Snow White ran through the forest, dodging trees and stumbling over roots. She was frightened and alone. Just as the sun began to set, she found a tiny cottage hidden among the trees. She knocked softly. No one answered. She stepped inside and saw 7 little chairs, 7 little bowls, and 7 tiny beds. Tired from running, she lay down across the beds and soon fell fast asleep. That evening, the owners of the cottage returned. They were 7 dwarfs who worked in the mountains digging for gems. When they saw Snow White, they gathered around. "Who is this girl?" asked one. "She looks tired," said another. "Let's not scare her. Maybe she needs help," said Jolly, the happiest of the 7. Snow White woke up and gasped, but the dwarfs were kind. She told them her story, and their faces turned serious. "You can stay with us," said Grumble, the gruffest one. "But the queen may come looking for you," warned Wise, the oldest. "I'll be careful," Snow White promised. She stayed with the dwarfs, helping with chores and making the cottage feel like home. They became like a family. But far away in her castle, the queen once again asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror replied, "Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs, is the fairest of them all." The queen was enraged. Using dark magic, she disguised herself as an old woman. She made a shiny red apple and filled it with a terrible sleeping spell. Dressed in her disguise, the queen traveled to the cottage and knocked on the door. "Hello, dear," she said sweetly. "Would you like to try a special apple? It's the sweetest one you'll ever taste." Snow White hesitated, but the woman seemed harmless, and the apple looked delicious. She took one small bite, and suddenly her eyes closed, and she fell to the floor. The queen laughed wickedly and disappeared into the woods. When the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying still and silent. They cried and tried everything, but she would not wake up. They gently laid her in a glass case filled with soft flowers and placed it deep in the forest. They stayed near her, always hoping she would wake. One day, a prince rode through the woods and saw her. He had heard of her kindness and beauty. When he saw her face, his heart filled with sadness. He leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. Suddenly, Snow White's eyes fluttered open. The spell was broken. The dwarfs jumped and cheered. Snow White smiled at them, then at the prince. "Come with me," said the prince. You'll be safe in my castle and never afraid again." Snow White hugged each of the dwarfs. "I'll never forget you," she said with happy tears. She left with the prince to live a joyful life, but often returned to visit the 7 little friends who had given her love and safety when she needed it most. As for the evil queen, when she learned that Snow White still lived, her anger grew so hot that it shattered her magic forever. She vanished, never to return, and so Snow White lived happily ever after, always remembering that kindness, courage, and true friends are the most powerful magic of all.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.